Hi, my name's Don Gutzmer. I'm a West System Tech Advisor, and this is the third video of a series from Sale Magazine on epoxy basics. My colleagues and I are eager to get started on showing the proper techniques of using the epoxy for repairing our old J22 we have here. But before we get started, I think it's worthwhile to take a few minutes and talk about surface prep. The key with working with epoxy is you want to ensure that the surface, whatever substrate that you're working with, is free of contaminants and that you can rely on the adhesion of the epoxy to the surface. So here's an example of like a polyester laminate. But before we get started in sanding it, you want to clean the surface with a solvent, and that could be either acetone or isopropyl alcohol, but you don't want to use rags or towels because the solvent can attack those and leave a contaminant on the surface. So paper towels work really well to wipe the surface down because there's no value added to a paper towel and it's not going to contaminate the surface. So once the surface is wiped with acetone, you can come back with a dry paper towel before the solvent flashes away. Once the surface is clean and you're ready to apply the epoxy to the surface, we want to sand the surface so you can get a mechanical bond to it. So if you use like an orbital sander or a palm sander, it's best to use sharp grit sandpaper. We like 80 grit sandpaper because it creates enough tooth for the epoxy to key into. And aluminum oxide sandpaper works really well compared to other sandpapers out there on the market. For other substrates, either if it's wood, metal, or even polyester, you would use the same principles by making sure that the surface is clean and free of any contaminants. Then you would want to braid the surface so the epoxy can adhere to that sanded surface. Be aware when you are going to put more coats of the epoxy on the surface, it's best to do it in the same day to avoid sanding in between coats. And you want to recoat maybe an hour after you apply the first coat and wait till the surface is still tacky to the touch, and depending on the temperature would kind of regulate how long to wait between coats. And then you can eliminate the step of cleaning and sanding the surface so you can get all your coats in the same day. With an epoxy coating, as we have an example right here, one thing you have to keep in mind is it can leave a waxy film on the surface called an amine blush. The blush can be removed quickly with just water because it's water soluble. So just paper towels and water and an abrasive pad like a 3M Scotch-Brite pad will remove it quickly. Then you can just use water and a paper towel to dry it up. Once the surface is cleaned, now you can come back and sand the surface to recoat it or apply another product over it. Once the surface has been sanded dull and you're ready to apply more epoxy, it's not a good idea to come back over it with solvent because you could potentially leave contaminants behind. You could use a bristled brush to come out and just brush away the sanding dust. But one thing that works really well is a microfiber rag that's slightly damp that you just come back and wipe the surface away and prepare it for additional coats of epoxy or any other product in your process.